We're here really to talk about Apex, if you don't mind, and what an incredible success.
Figured it might come up.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have questions about it. I certainly have a lot of questions for you about something that I don't think any of us expected. It was one of the biggest surprises in the industry that I can recall over the last few years. So I want to talk a little bit about making the transition from what you guys have been doing to what you're doing now with Apex. And first, just to set the stage, how is Apex doing today?
It's doing great. I mean, we're bringing in new users still. We have a lot of people that come back every day. I think I'm not supposed to talk about numbers, but you know, they're pretty good numbers.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so when you guys started talking about doing a free-to-play game, you've been working on Titanfall for a long time. What was that transition like for the team? Was it difficult to get everybody to sort of mentally and emotionally commit to something as different?
It still is. Like, I don't think we're even there yet today, right? Like, we didn't expect it to be as big as it was. I don't know how you can prepare for that, right? So we're still figuring out internally, like, what the cadence of content has to be and how we support it, and I think we're making some changes now. We've been a little dark because we're kind of figuring out internally what we need to do. When you get that many people stress testing the game, like, you find flaws that you just never imagined. So we've been firefighting, fixing things, and we're going to put the focus back on those quality of life issues and make sure everything's perfect before we really start to build more content too. And I think that's important. If the game's not working for everybody, then it's not fun for everybody. Yeah.
Well, even before way before launch, did you have people that said this is not a good idea for us?
Not really. I don't think anyone thought it wasn't a good idea. There's some people that aren't into that style of game, or there's some people that are more interested in telling a story. So they're less interested in making a game like that. But we have story games too.
Yeah, which is great.
So,
we can balance both.
Yeah.
So for those of us who are not in that part of the industry, what advice would you have for developers who sort of want to make the transition from more traditional games into free to play?
I don't know that I'd want to give any advice yet. Be prepared for a lot of things you didn't realize and don't know, and hire people that have experience, because I think we're going through those growing pains now of figuring out like how to put people on different tasks and what we need to do. And we've hired in people now that have some experience that can give us guidance and things they've seen in the past. So
what's some of the outside expertise that you brought in that you didn't have?
Just even like build release managers, like someone who can really like look at, we're dropping builds now much more frequently. So that process gets messed up and things get like turned around and we put out like the wrong files, and it's been a little bit of a mess.
Oh, my mic isn't working. Is this one working? Yeah, it is working. All right. So you guys didn't hear any of the questions I asked before, so but the answers are great. So you incorporated the questions into the answers. So we were talking about
I could hear them fine.
Expertise that you bring in from the outside to help you with free-to-play games, right? Most of us are used to a pretty straightforward, a method of making games that we've been engaged in for a long time. Were there other processes that you had to change inside the studio when it came to thinking about the effects of monetization and your pipeline?
Yeah, I think it's looking at data in different ways. We have people that analyze it now and look at like things that, like what's resonating with players, what are they buying, what are they playing, what things are really making a difference to the game, and looking at like things that we thought weren't meaningful really are, and things that we thought were going to make a huge difference just kind of fall flat.
So I kind of want to move on to the launch though. So how the hell did you keep it secret?
I honestly am stunned that we did. I mean, it was the plan. We wanted to keep it secret because it was, you're talking about a game in the Titanfall universe that doesn't have Titans, doesn't have wall running. If you come out with that too far in advance, then you're like instantly in the defending it, right? Like you're like, no, but it's okay because here's why. And instead of talking about it in a positive way, you're being defensive. So we wanted to just get it out there. And if you have questions, you can just play it. And here it is, like try it.
But you must have had several hundred people who knew about the game, and I don't remember seeing. I don't know. Did you see anything about Apex before it hit? Right. This is like one of the best kept secrets in the industry, I thought. and was such a
there was
surprise.
a couple little things that poked out here and there that were squashed really quickly, and no one really bought into it because it was something. I think it helped that it was so different from what we had done in the past that maybe people didn't instantly latch onto it.
Was there anything that you had to tell the team to make everybody understand how important it was to keep things under wraps?
No, I mean, I think the team's pretty good with that anyway. I think they understand. You know, a lot of us have been doing it for a lot of years.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's something that I think we forget about in this industry. Confidentiality tends to be king. And it's funny that, I don't know if you ever get this from fans who are asking you about, well, why aren't you guys more transparent about what you're doing? Do you get those questions?
Every day.
Every day?
Every day. And it's a balance, right? Like right now, I think we're in a place where we're not talking enough. We're not being transparent enough with fans because we're figuring out what the game is and how we're going to support it. So it's hard to go out and tell a story and be too transparent when it's, you know, the real story is like, well, we don't know yet. Like that's not a great, strong message. So we're kind of holding that to figure out what we're doing. But I think we need to start engaging fans better. Like I think we were good at the start. We kind of fell off as things, you know, as we're fighting fires and working on the game, and now it needs to come back, and we need to be kind of engage that fan base more and bring them into the story. Because I mean, they are the heart of the game, right?
Yeah. That's right. That, by the way, that wasn't meant as a dig. I was more talking about what you do before launch. But yeah, that was a great answer for after launch too.
Yeah.
So speaking of launch, how did the team react at launch? What was the atmosphere like in the studio?
Shell shock. I think it's, you know, you watch it going and like what's happening here, and it just keeps going up and up and up and up. And you know, we had kind of systems set up with, you know, showing the daily users and what, you know, current like maximum users, and it was just like everyone was just standing around it kind of in awe.
I remember walking past you at DICE, and you were definitely in shell shock. You had a great expression on your face. You were definitely, I think, thinking about the numbers, but you were happy.
Yeah, I mean it's great, right? How do you not get happy over something like that?
No, it's pretty awesome. I mean, especially when you have fans respond or players respond the way that they have, right? Did your team have predictions prior to launch about how things would go?
Yes.
Did they affect how you guys prepared for it?
Yeah, I mean, like especially since it's a live service game, we prepare like the number of servers we had, you know, in bare metal versus like scaling into the cloud. You know, we had set it at a certain number and we were way off. So, you know, it ends up being more expensive that way. And then we're playing catch up and constantly like, okay, how much do we ratchet it up and how much do we ratchet it up, and just keep doing that every week.
Well, one thing we talked about at Insomniac when we watched your launch was, how did you guys manage to support that many players so quickly without having an open beta?
Well, I think
without battle testing things, basically. That was the
Right.
question, because most of the big games we've seen come out have an open beta where they're putting millions of players on the servers and they're making sure that they're.
It's not a new game, right? The technology comes from the Titanfall series, right? So that Titanfall being out there, Titanfall 2, like that was kind of the beta test in a way, and we built from there. So I mean, there's still a lot of stresses that went into it, and there was, you know, a few things that fell down, but you know, mostly it held up really well, and you know, we have an amazing team, and they just did an amazing job.
Yeah, clearly. So what was the most, if you can remember, what was the most sort of interesting piece of feedback that you got at launch when the game was still relatively fresh for everybody?
Feedback from the
players, yeah.
I think it's just like feeling like that validation of the game working and being something that, even though it's different from what people were expecting, that it was as fun as we thought it was.
Yeah.
Like that's a great validation.
Did you yourself spend a lot of time playing and making sure that fun factor was there and that the mechanics felt good?
Yeah, I mean, we did daily play tests for a long time with the whole team, and I participated as much as possible. You know, obviously we all get busy, but you know,
That's great. Well, I mean, how many of you guys do daily play tests or regular play tests with your teams? Yeah, a bunch, right? I mean, we found too that is absolutely crucial. And how many of all of us here hear excuses that I don't have time to do a play test because I'm working on content, right? Right, everybody. We all do. But I mean,
we made some of them mandatory.
Yeah.
So.
Was there much resistance to that?
Yeah, but for the right reasons, right? Like people are worried about getting the work done. So it wasn't just like, hey, I don't want to play the game. It's just like, I've got so much to do, but it's like, this is more important and you'll make better content if you're more involved in the game.
And seeing it firsthand and experiencing it, right, as a player would.
Yep.
That's fantastic. So how often, you said daily, how long were the daily play tests going on? How many months?
8.
So would you guys just shut down Respawn for a couple hours and everybody just jumps on and play?
Like towards the end of the day, we would do play tests.
That's
and
fantastic.
Kind of gather around and give feedback.
What was...
And, sometimes they didn't work, so they only lasted a few minutes. But,
Was there anything that was dramatically changed as a result of the whole team jumping on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole core of what the game is morphed several times, right? Like we had different things in there. Wall running was in at one point, but it broke the game. It made it less fun. It was, we played around with different size, squads. Was it 2? Was it 4? Is there, and we settled on 3 kind of being fun. Size of map, like everything changed.
But how vociferous were those arguments? For example, the size of squads, right? Like 3 is a really interesting choice. So was there a little bit of back and forth on that?
There's still a little bit of back and forth on that. So.
How do you feel about that?
I think 3 is fun.
I do too, actually. Yeah. I think it's enough to, you kind of feel like you get to know them a bit, and I can only keep track of 3 things essentially, or 2 other things, so that helps too.
Yeah.
Were there any other big knockdown, drag-out arguments you guys had about core aspects of the game?
I mean, there's arguments every day. I don't know which ones are knockdown, drag out, and which ones aren't. But
here's one for you.
We have a very passionate team.
Yeah.
And we don't always agree. So there's a lot of discussion that goes back and forth into everything.
What about art style?
No, art style we were pretty locked in on.
Really?
Yeah. Like the concept artist did a bunch of stuff. We had some back and forth, but it wasn't like, wasn't super controversial.
Character design?
We settled into it pretty quickly. No, the character design was good. We had a bunch, and we did, like, there's a lot more characters than we actually had, so it was kind of like, than we've released so far, right? There's more in process. So it's selecting the ones that work best together and balancing them out, and, that became more of a kind of discussion than what the characters actually were.
That's great. You found something special. I know that we have probably the loudest arguments about character design if it's an original character, and everybody wants to weigh in and appropriately.
People have different opinions on the skins since they're very different. Like a lot of the legendary skins, people, that one sucks, but that one's amazing. And it's like, no, you're wrong.
Do you get fan feedback on that and
Oh yeah.
So does it justify the decisions you made sometimes?
It goes both ways, right? Like for every one person that loves something, you're going to find someone that hates it probably.
Yeah.
So, which is great. That's why we have selection, we have personalization. You can pick the one you like. I'll pick the one I like, and that's great.
So, so given that you are getting input from your team, I imagine EA had some input for you, and now millions and millions of players, how are you filtering that all?
It's the team's job to kind of go through and see what makes the most difference. Like, there's only so much we can do.
Yeah.
Like, we have a limited amount of time and resource, so what makes the most impact, what makes the game, like, first and foremost, we need to focus on balance, things that are game-breaking, and then when it comes to, like, vanity items and things like that, that's a discussion with marketing and with the team and with the art and design, and figuring out what works.
Are there any things that are specifically off limits that you guys have said, there's a line here that we will not cross in terms of style or theme?
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to maintain the tone of the game, so we're not going like too over the top ludicrous. I say that, but it is kind of somewhere close to that line, I guess. And some of the characters are a little more over the top, but I think it's we're not cartoony. We're not we're more of a core game.
Yeah,
we're not as like focused on younger gamers.
Have you found that there is a particular demographic now that's gravitating to it? I mean, is there a way for you to know?
Yeah, we kind of know. I mean, it's a great group. It's probably in the 12 to 30 some odd range is our like big core group of players.
Do you find they're different? I know I'm getting really deep into the developer talk. Sorry, I'm just like totally into this stuff. But I mean, in terms of play styles, in terms of what is attracting the different, say, generations of players, are you finding there is a significant difference, or do you kind of look at everybody as kind of wanting the same thing from the game?
Yeah, I don't think there's a big difference. I think there's certain characters that are resonating more with players, because they're, some would say the balance is off or something like that. We've just buffed a couple of them, so we'll see. That's been like picking up a little bit. So we'll see. The goal would be to get them all roughly in the same range, but some of it's going to be based on play style, not just power level, or like you just identify with the kind of the play style of that character, the mobility functions or things. So.
Okay. So when it comes to looking ahead for the content that you're making, right? How do you make sure that you are satisfying the demand, not underserving it, or not making too much, right? Because it can be a real scope bomb if you're making way more than you need to.
Our intention was to always be seasonal, so we're kind of staying with that. The thought was like, hey, we kind of have something that's blowing up here. Do we want to start trying to drop more content? But I think you look at quality of life for the team. Like, we don't want to overwork the team and drop the quality of the assets that we're putting out. We want to try to raise that. So we're going to stick with the seasonal cadence and put stuff out regularly. And it'll be, instead of like, a lot of bullets, we'll, one big bomb, right? And put something out that's meaningful and hopefully that resonates well with the players.
Is there ever the temptation just to hire a bunch more people and just go blammo? Here you guys go, infinite content for everybody.
Not really. I just don't like that. Sounds like a hard thing to do.
It does. You're right. Sorry, I had to ask. But then again, I'm kind of getting to sort of player appetites and trying to have a gauge on it. Is there a way that you guys have figured it out? Like, is it seasonal, or is it based on what other games are out, amount of time people have been in the game?
We've only been out for 11 weeks, right? So
good point, sorry.
We're not really, we haven't even figured that out yet. I think we're sticking to seasonal. There are a lot of people that are like, hey, where's the weekly updates? Fortnite does this, and it's like, well, we're not set up to do that. We never intended to, so, we'd like to satisfy all the players, but I just, it's hard to imagine getting, more content than we're already kind of working on. We have all the resources of the team are focused on getting this game, in a better position so it plays well, so we have enough content, so the seasons are better. I think our season 1 was light on content, lighter than we wanted it to be, so we're going to improve that, and season 2 will be better, and we'll build from there.
Do you? How did you come up with the timeline for the specific amount of time for a season? Was that a total guess? Total guess? Okay. Yeah. And were you guys right, you think?
We've had one, so I don't.
So far, 100%,
next year,
right?
Next year, we'll have all this information.
I imagine you're probably getting a lot of comments on the length of the season. Yeah. And
I think most people are okay with that. Like, we're imagining quarterly. So to me, that's enough time where you're not really getting bored with the game yet too much. You don't want to force it out too early and not let people have enough time to get through it.
That's the same answer I would give, but I think a lot of us live in the world of quarter to quarter, too. I mean, we were thinking from a quarterly perspective for a lot of other reasons, right? So just in terms of how we run our businesses. Do gamers think that way? I mean, it sounds like what you're doing is you're providing a template for gamers to think that way. You're saying, okay, this is a way that our game design works,
right?
And we're setting expectations in this specific fashion that's unique to Apex.
Yeah. And I mean, if that doesn't work, we'll look at adjusting it, but I think we're not at a point where we know that yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're kind of setting this is what we think we can do and make something that's meaningful.
So how difficult was it for you to do hey, we're not Fortnite? Was that something that even entered your minds? Did you need to do any of that, or did the game just purely speak for itself?
In terms of like identification of the game, I don't know. I don't think we did anything specific to say that. I think it's just the game is different, right?
Yeah.
Like, Fortnite is a social platform. They do amazing things. We're more of a, kind of a core game. So I think it does differentiate itself just from, kind of the gameplay and the style.
Is there, you think, a lot of crossover as a result? People playing both and saying, look, I get one thing out of Fortnite, I get another out of Apex. They're scratching a similar itch?
There's definitely some of that. I think probably not as much as you would imagine. Like I think we see a lot more crossover with like Blackout or PUBG.
Okay.
So.
And so when you are when your players are giving you feedback, are their comments sort of, are they trying to push in that direction a little bit more?
It's a mix. I mean, we get a lot of fans that are, like thankful, oh my God, we love it, it's great. And then we get people that are just like, I'm done with everything. Give me more, give me more, give me more. And, I don't know, like you have to find the balance. Generally the loudest voices, are the people that are dissatisfied. It doesn't mean they're the biggest voice. So you have to look at that and kind of dig a little deeper and see what's really happening.
Got it. So what state plays the most Apex?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Is there any way of figuring that out? I mean, do you
There
guys
would
have
be,
those?
yeah.
I'd love to know. I mean, that's just one of those things where you look across the country and you see, okay, who's...
Never looked. When we first had it out, we were looking at the map of where players were coming from, and we had it just up on an actual geographical map, and there was one person in Madagascar. And it was just, wow. I didn't understand it, but that's cool.
So now you can go back and check to see if there's maybe more than one, maybe two.
I'm gonna have to go look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun thing to share with just fans in general. Do you ever share that kind of demographic? Say, here's who's playing.
Yeah, we haven't, I don't think.
Do you think players are, sounds like a leading question, but it's not. Are players interested in that?
I don't know.
I don't know, I would be. If playing, I'd love to know how many, I'm looking at Min, you're saying no, probably not. You're saying yes? Okay.
Yeah. You were in Madagascar, weren't you?
That's awesome. So one more question about just player feedback. How do you react to balance issues? In other words, you're getting feedback that a particular gun might be overpowered or there's a drop that's happening too frequently in the game. Do you guys react immediately to that, or do you spend some time really thinking it through and running tests, et cetera? How do you approach those things?
Like the Mozambique being underpowered? I think people are wrong. It's amazing. No, we dig into it because, just because one person or a group of people look into or think something's overpowered, underpowered, it doesn't mean it is.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of research before we change anything. We try not to be too knee-jerk with anything. Unless it's a bug or something that seems game-breaking, then we'll try to jump on it a little faster. But
is there a silent majority out there? I mean, obviously, all of us who have online communities hear from the most vocal folks, right? And it's difficult to balance those comments against what is probably a much larger community out there who's just kind of happy with what's going on. Is there a technique or is there a philosophy you have for that?
I think we have community managers that look at all that stuff and gather data, and we look at research, and we look at the actual player trends, and we have millions of people that play the game every day. So it's kind of looking at what they're doing, and if we see things falling off, then we know, okay, maybe there's a problem.
Yeah.
If it's not, then it's probably less likely that there's a problem, and it's just somebody that's upset.
How frequently do you see things falling off? I mean, do you see actual dips in hours played, and do you worry about those things if you do?
Well, I mean, we kind of live and die by that, right? So
yeah.
You have to worry about it. But it's a natural curve. It goes up and down as we launch new content, as as Europe falls off and goes to sleep and other things pick up. It's you see different things peaking and troughing. So it's.
Do you have people at Respawn who are just addicted to watching those curves and going,
yes.
"Oh my God,
yes.
we had a drop in France. What are we going to do?" Yeah, okay, they probably didn't.
Probably not to that level, but yeah, we look at it.
I would. I'm just saying that because I probably would. I'd be obsessed with that. So
that guy in Madagascar is gone, though. I'm gonna have to do something.
You should fly him over and give him a tour of Respawn, or that person. Seriously, custom skin, everything. So in this space, right, in the free-to-play space, and I'll call it the free-to-play sort of battle royale-ish competitive space, do you think there is a new arms race happening now?
I don't know. I think it's kind of a new genre, a new mode that's kind of here to stay, right? There's, you never have enough deathmatch games or capture the flag, or, there's multiples that can exist and do things slightly differently and be okay. So I don't know if it's arms race as much as, people looking to innovate and do something better in a space that, we think is going to be around for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when MMOs, right? With I mean, Mike's here. Mike's right there. And when we talk about Warcraft all the time and say there can really only be one, right? I mean, obviously there were more MMOs, but we would say, given the amount of time that people put into these games, it's really difficult to understand how you can diversify. But clearly people are, and that's what's cool about the battle royale / sort of free-to-play high-end genre. In fact, how do you describe this genre? Because I'm having trouble here.
It's character-based battle royale.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a term? Is there a term you can kind of put a trademark on now? Just today?
No.
Invent here
No.
at GamesBeat?
Uh-uh.
Character-based. Okay. I was trying to come up with an acronym, but that's not working here. So looking back on production through the entire time that you were working on Apex, which was how long, by the way?
It's tough to pin that down because we had some guys that were kind of working on it. So we were doing more general Titanfall universe stuff. And we had some guys early on, probably a year and a half, maybe a little bit less than that, like kind of ideating on some things, but it was just a couple of guys. So like when we really started in earnest was probably a year before we launched.
Okay. Really? That's impressive. So looking back, is there anything that you would have changed or done differently? You had to maybe name 2 things.
No.
No.
I mean, I think things have to, they happen that way for a reason, right? Like, that's how you find the fun. You can go back and say, like, oh, we should have never, entertained that idea, but we probably should have. Like, that's what gets you to the next idea. And so I don't know that you change the process and you change the result.
Yeah.
So.
That's great. No regrets. So looking ahead, how do you think players are going to change in this space?
Ooh. I don't know. Why would they change?
Well,
just play more.
They could. Maybe they want. Maybe there's a point where we've seen certain types of combat. We want more. Maybe there are new genres that need to be introduced. I mean, look. If we go back to deathmatch, right? You mentioned deathmatch, right? And the proliferation of multiplayer games back in the early 2000s, right, spawned an immense amount of new modes and just twists on that genre back then. So I'm wondering.
I think we'll change what the game is. Like, we're continuing to innovate. We're looking at new ways to present the game. So I don't know, is that the players changing or is that us changing what we offer them?
That's a great, that's a good point. So is it a symbiotic relationship where you're getting, it's sort of a feedback loop?
I think it has to be, right? Because if we put out a mode that they don't want, it's not going to go anywhere or do anything for us. So I think we'll hopefully experiment with some things, put out something that people really like and latch onto, and then we can kind of keep innovating in this game.
Makes sense.
And I guess that's kind of different. Like, instead of putting out a game, like a big launch, and then waiting a couple years and putting out another big launch, we can now change things as we're developing.
Has that changed everybody's mindset at Respawn?
We'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
As we're kind of moving into that mode now, I think some people love it, and they the idea of putting something out there is great. To some people, it's terrifying, and it's like, wait, it's not perfect. We have to test it for 2 years, and so I think it's a scary thing for some people. And
is that because we're all used to the race to the finish line, put it out, okay, done.
Yeah.
Now I can breathe, and there is no breathing, right? You're putting it out constantly.
Yeah.
Have some people not been able to make the transition?
We haven't seen that yet, but I have a feeling some people will get tired of it. Like, they'll burn out and just want to do something new instead of kind of iterating in what they have. They'll want to work on something new, and we'll move them around to different projects maybe.
At the same time, have you found that it's sort of a new tonic for folks who like that constant feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have some people that were just born for it. Right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any questions for Vince, since we have about a minute left? Yes.
So I've heard about the Chinese hackers and cheaters. What are their impacts, and how are you planning to combat them?
Yeah, we're constantly combating it, right? So we're stepping up, working with the easy anti-cheat is what we use. We're working with them. We're doing hardware bans now. We've banned, I don't even know what the number is now, 300,000-400,000 accounts. And now with the hardware bans, it makes it harder. We're looking at being more restrictive in it because like, that's a terrible experience, right? When you're in a game and you know somebody's cheating. We've had a huge impact on that already. Like the number of matches that are exposed to cheating is down like 70%. So, but we'll be constantly fighting that, as you know, any game that's successful probably does. But it's super important to us.
How did the reaction to Star Wars game go? And then, like, how are you balancing the popularity of Apex and what that requires of your team against what you have to deliver in Star Wars?
We're out of time. I don't know. Unless you know somebody that can pull some strings, get me extra time.
For those watching, that was Dean asking the question.
So I think there was mostly people understand, right, that we're two separate teams, but I think there was a little bit of like, in this period where we're being a little too silent on Apex, and then all of a sudden we announce Star Wars and it goes huge, then there's some people concerned about like, oh, well, that's why you're not making more content, or that's why you're not talking about Apex, because you have this Star Wars game. It's two completely separate teams, so I think we need to like make sure that we're very clear on that with people, that one is not hurting the other. How we're going to balance it is, you know, it is two separate teams, right? So they're each out to be successful, and they have to both be. There is no option otherwise. None. Star Wars is super important to me, if you haven't figured that out. Yeah. So is Apex. But
Vince, thank you very much.
thank you, everyone.
Vince, everybody.